Ontario, Canada. Today, the site of a world-class race course where the Verizon IndyCar Series is set to go racing now.
Sports, please welcome Allison Schultz.
Drivers, start your engines!
Love the energy of the Command to Start engines, and we're about to see that energy unleashed here on this race course on Detroit's Belle Isle. Let's take a look and show you what's going to challenge the drivers today.
Well, Alan, drivers will be using a lot of energy to get around this track. It's 14 turns, this long run down into 3. A new segment last year was working very well for passing through 4 and 5. Important to get to turn 6, that long run down to 7. Passing opportunity there, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We call that the fountain turns. A good run through 12, 13, 14, back to turn 1. Confrontational sometimes when drivers come out of pit road, Eddie, and that run down to turn 3 now, better passing zone than we've ever had before.
Turn 3 is a great place to pass. As you can see here when Castro Neves is passing Ray Hall, it's really important to line up behind them. And the biggest key in this corner, if you're going to pass, is to get 2 right. And 2 has been very tricky this year. Here again, you can see a perfectly executed pass from Frank Keating.
170 miles an hour down to 70 in that corner. That's what makes it such a great place to pass. Now a little drama on the grid as the pole sitter, Helio Castroneves, has had some trouble getting fired up. But will take off, and per IndyCar rules, as long as he's able to catch up to the field before they complete the first of the 2 pace laps, he's able to reclaim his spot on the starting field. Don't miss your chance to start a Verizon IndyCar Series race in the Honda Andretti TV two-seater. Enter for a chance to win at shophonda.com. Occupying the lead seat in that one today, Ari Lyondike. And occupying the passenger seat, Joseph Ryskowski from Erie, Pennsylvania. I got excited. I want to ride in that 2-seater. So, top of the screen, here comes the starting lineup for today's race. A field of 22, and as you watch it go by, you will notice some of the guys up front that you expect to be up front, and some of the guys you expect to be up front way in the back. Ryan Briscoe has got our NTT data on board today. Graham Rahal is carrying our National Guard on board camera. Justin Wilson, former winner here, going to come from the back, driving with our Honda on board. And Mike Conway back aboard the 20 machine, one of the favorites to win with the Verizon onboard camera. Marco Andretti starting out back. He has a Honda on board, looking to find a way to the front. Simon Pagenaud, penalized during qualifying. One of the winners here in Detroit a year ago, one of the favorites on a road and street course. Watch for him to make some moves through traffic today. And the Indy 500 winner, Ryan Hunter-Reay, so incredible this season in all of the Verizon IndyCar Series races so far. He's got our AutoNation on board and will come from the very last row on the grid. So it is 81 degrees here today, and Eddie, you talked about the tough winter. They had snow here as late as April 15th.
As everybody knows who lived in the Midwest this winter, it was brutal, and a winter like that really hurts a circuit. And we saw, Scott, as we looked at him test during the last few days, it's very, very bumpy. A lot of bumps that were not there last year have appeared. This will make a big difference.
1 pace lap to go before the green flag. This event here on Belle Isle is promoted by a captain of industry who happens to be based here in Detroit. Jamie?
Yes, he is. He has more than just winning the race on his shoulders. You have this entire event. Roger, why is it so important to you to have the turnout that you have here in the Detroit GP?
Well, I know, as you know, Detroit's going through really a renaissance here, and this race means a lot to the city. And for me, it's my home track, and obviously Helio sitting on the pole with a Chevy engine today is pretty exciting. But to me, it's about the fans. You know, it's about the people that support Detroit, and we're looking forward to a terrific race, and just want to get one we didn't get last week.
All right, gorgeous day. He's on the pole, and we'll see what happens here, Alan.
Rogers' organization has done such a wonderful job promoting this event. From the moment I landed in town, they've been on every television station in town. If you did not know this race was going on in Detroit, then you've been under a rock somewhere. And the turnout has been wonderful here today. Looking for Spanish language commentary today? Activate your SAP button. It's presented by ESPN Deportes. So 70 laps around this 14-turn, 2.36-mile circuit. And again, the story, Castroneves up front, but the Indy 500 winner is out back. Ryan Hunter-Reay starting in the back row, along with Justin Wilson, a former winner here, along with Simon Pagenaud, who's way back in 17th, along with Will Power, who's back in 16th. How do they get through the tough traffic between these unyielding walls, as Hinch said, that can reach out and bite you, and get to the front?
It's a fine line between aggression and patience. You want to be aggressive past cars. You have to have patience because this track is so bumpy. We're going to show you as this race goes on just how physical it is for the drivers here today.
Carefully, I would say carefully.
Doubled up for the start. Here they come to the front stretch. Pace car is off. The first of the duel in Detroit is coming to the green.
Castroneves was in no mood to have anybody give him a hard time turning into turn one.
Second
place.
place.
To start by quite a long way.
Jack Hawksworth inside of James Hinchcliffe for second. And they all got through turn 3.
Oh, and I didn't think so. So difficult coming down there from a high speed. So bumpy as we talked about this race course. The tires spend more time in the air than they do touching the ground. Very difficult to control your car.
But from the moment we saw Helio Castroneves driving laps on this track, he has looked in a class of his own over these bumps. And if you look at the start, he's already started putting in that gap that makes his drive so much easier.
The run down the Strand, turn 7. And around the James Scott Memorial Fountain, we'll call it the Fountain Turns. A very tricky, tight complex.
So Pagenaud's car, or excuse me, James Hinchcliffe's car start to step out there just a little bit. He's trying to get the power down. Tells me that he's not getting through the center of the turn and off the turn as quickly as he needs to, because right now Hawksworth seems to be able to pull away from him.
Everybody's still very edgy. Haven't quite found their rhythm. The only person right now, the only two people that have found the rhythm is Helio Castroneves and Hawksworth.
So lap 1 led by Castroneves. Remember, if you're new to IndyCar racing, but just as a reminder, we're back to the 2 different tire specifications this weekend. It'll be a main storyline to the strategy of this one. The black wall tires are the normal compound, if you will, the standard tire, and those with the red sidewalls are the alternate or softer tire. You have to run each compound at least once for 2 laps in each race, and the trick is how long will the softer tires hold their speed, and how will that affect your strategy and track position?
And the interesting point right now, Mike Conway in the Fuzzy's car, he's out actually on the regular tire. The primary tire does not have as much grip, and he's running around these guys with that alternate tire, as you mentioned, has more grip on the road, so he's able to really continue to keep up there and chase those guys down.
67, Joseph Newgarden on the move in the opening laps. He started in 14th place. He's up to 9th now in that white, black, and neon green trimmed car, just ahead of Graham Rahal in the 15.
And they had a very good qualifying. They seem to be finding their way back to the front of the grid. This is a very important race for that team. Look at that traffic jam.
Yeah. So a quick glimpse there of Will Power in the 12 and Simon Pagenaud in the 77. Started well back in the field. Power started 16th, Pagenaud 17th. They moved up 1 spot to 15th and 16th.
Hunter-Reay hasn't made much progress. He's still in 20th position.
And you ride with Mike Conway there, running in 4th. Sebastian Saavedra with a quick look around Carlos Huertas. Ducked back in line. There's Power, there's Pagenaud, and there is Hunter-Reay.
You have to be patient in a place like this, as we saw in practice. If you get offline just a little bit, as they say, those walls come out and bite you. You do not need that if you're in a run for the championship. He has to collect as many points as he can every time he's in the race car, Scott.
Riding with Hunter-Reay.
Great points, obviously a double points paying race at Indianapolis 500 last week, so catapulted him into the lead. We spoke to him earlier this morning. He said, you know, where I'm starting, going to cut back the fuel, try to run with the pace, sort of make this a 2-stop race if we can. Be interesting to see if they stay on this strategy or if they decide to change quarter distance into this race.
Look at our Honda telemetry as Hunter-Reay wrestles through those fountain corners. Update from pit road, Rick.
Well, let's talk about the little incident this morning that caused Ryan Hunter-Reay to go to the back of the grid. He was on a qualifying lap, just barely tapped the wall. It was a very minor repair that had to be made. They just didn't have the minutes necessary in the qualifying session to get it done. If they had literally 5 more minutes, they could have gotten him back out there. He was only able to turn 1 lap at any speed. As a result, he's back out there. But the good news is that incident this morning not causing any problem for Ryan Hunter-Reay in this race.
What a difference a week makes.
Yeah. So Hunter-Reay right behind Justin Wilson in the 19, one of the former winners here on Belle Isle that's in this field today. Wilson, one of the road course aces. Didn't expect to see him that far back on the grid, but there he is, and trying to make his way further toward the front.
At this place, the driver that's really impressive is Conway, who's managing to stick up with these top 3 cars with the harder compound.
There is Mike. Fountain turns there. Conway running in 4th. Ed Carpenter driving that car in Indianapolis last week, involved in the crash, racing up front for the lead inside the final 25 laps. Castroneves leads. Back after this from your ABC station. Well, those walls here at Belle Isle, as James Hinchcliffe said in our pre-race interview, have reached out and grabbed someone. The first of them is Simon Pagenaud, one of the winners here in the dual races last year. You see him climbing from his car at the end of the back stretch, turn 7.
Everybody fighting for position now. Obviously, Will spun the tires coming out of the turn, so now he's off the normal line that he should be. And then a look for Simon, and actually Will just starts to come over. Should have thought that somebody was on the outside of him simply from the fact he was in the middle of the road.
But we don't have spotters here, so the only way he would know is by looking in his mirrors.
But when you're defending or riding on board right now with Marco Andretti's Snapple machine, now just watch this, just enough to move him offline and catches his left front with the wall. Those guys were already at it beforehand. Sends him off a little bit. I suspect that Will probably didn't know him there. Probably just thought that he would get out of the throttle so he wouldn't have a run on him going down the straightaway. And look what the left front is now.
But another issue he had Marco Andretti on the right-hand side, so he had to focus on what is next to him a little bit behind on the left, but also Marco, who was on the other side, so his movement was limited in what he could do to defend. A horrible way to end a race.
So Pagenaud fourth in the championship, starting the day. He's got a disabled car very early on in the first of what you can essentially consider a double points weekend. Races today and tomorrow. Will we see pit stops here, Rick?
Well, let's talk about the fact that Ryan Hunter-Reay, because he's starting so far in the back, right off the bat is looking at doing a different strategy than the leaders are going to do. As a result, they're up ready to do a pit stop. They want to make a change on the car right away. But normally he would, if he was up front, would monitor what the leaders were going to do. He would stay up there. But in this case, the plan is to bring him in early, go off on a different strategy, and hopefully do a strategy that's going to win at the end of the race. All right, once again, coming down pit lane as he comes down, quickly coming in. Obviously, everything goes in properly. Now, once again, they're going to do a slight front wing adjustment as soon as they get everything on. They reach up, they do it. And now he's going to be away cleanly. Oh, they got a problem with the left rear. They've got a problem getting it on just an extra couple seconds, but it costs us, Jamie.
All right, all clear, all clear.
And Will Power said exactly what you guys said in the booth, that he just got out of line and he pushed Pagenaud into the wall. He took off those scuffed red tires and put some black stickers on. So a little bit of different strategies here to start the race early.
Now what these drivers will hope for is that we run another 6, 8, 10 laps, get a caution. All these guys ahead of them on the track will come in for fuel and they'll stay out and try and steal that track position back.
There is not a clear strategy yet. We're going to have to wait about 15 laps before it evolves.
Well, Michael Andretti's made his move for Ryan Hunter-Reay. And we're under the first yellow flag in the duel at Detroit on Belle Isle.
Under caution, under yellow here for the incident involving Simon Pagenaud. And Simon, take us through what happened.
Well, I guess it's a racing incident, right? Will was struggling with miss-upshift, and his tires, I guess, were not new, so they were going off. And you know, I was trying to get around him, but wouldn't give me any rooms anywhere. So, you know, unfortunately, there he's actually, you know, I'm trying the outside, which is honestly optimistic. I know it. I should have known better.
Any shot to get back in?
Yeah, I mean, it's not too much damage. We could change the wishbone and go back out, but I don't know if race director allows us to bring the car back to the pits. I think we could definitely go back out. There's not too much damage.
Okay, Simon Pagenaud, tough start here in Detroit.
Of course, this is not the first time that Pagenaud and Power have tangled this season. That was in the Grand Prix of Long Beach.
Simon always seems to get the worst of those encounters he has with Power, but I think today that's just a racing accident. He tried the wrong line, and there you go.
They agreed to disagree. And we're back to racing here in Belle Isle. Elio Castroneves leads. Jack Hawksworth is second. James Hinchcliffe third. Mike Conway fourth. And Tony Kanaan, the black colors this week on the 10 car, is fifth. That's Juan Pablo Montoya giving up a spot to Joseph Newgarden, who's been the early mover in that 67.
And Rahal is putting a lot of pressure on Montoya.
And Montoya and Rahal just touched when they were coming out of the turn there. Once you get off sequence going through a turn, your car's off like we saw with Will Power. It takes you all the way through those next couple of turns until the next long straightaway, until you get back into the rhythm and have the chance to make your car being back online and up to speed.
If you really want to see what kind of a car Helio Castroneves has, just look at the distance he manages to put on the cars behind him when it's time to go on a restart. That's a big gap in a very short period.
That wasn't even on a restart, just that shot from that set of corners.
He has something extra.
It's the power down. He can get the power down coming out of the turns, but he hopes that he does not take his rear tires off the car, because if that happens, then he's going to be spinning the tires like we've seen a few of the other guys do early on in the race here. Rick, you have some more?
Well, just talking about the fact that Graham Rahal has been complaining on the radio about the fact that Montoya has gotten a little wider than he likes. He's been complaining quite a bit about the fact that he just isn't racing what he considers a proper line. The team's saying, we're aware of it, we know about that. In the meantime, all they can really do is to tell him to keep racing.
You saw Mike Conway coming over what we call the jump in turn 2. And the car was actually almost coming out from underneath him. And Eddie, you and I talked about this before. You get into turn 1 and you go through turns 1 to 2, and you come off that jump, as we call it, at 115 or 20 miles an hour, and the car just has to land in the correct position. So pounding on these drivers all day long, but you can't get mentally fatigued and make it wrong coming out, because that's when you're clipping the wall. I
love this camera view from Rahal behind Montoya. You can see how hard it is to control a car that has 750 horsepower around all these bumps in this tight cement track. It is awesome. You cannot take your eye off what's ahead of you at any time, and you have to get on the throttle so early, because if you don't, as we've seen, cars actually lose traction going in. Looks like he's riding a bull.
And you and I have lived that. You're just pounding through your arms and your wrist, and as we have talked about before, usually at one Detroit race you go home and you have a week's rest and you just think, goodness, it's over. We got to come back these guys tomorrow and do it all over again.
That's what they're paid all that money for.
So Montoya 9th, Graham Rahal 10th, continuing to try and find a way through the car ahead of them. Just behind them is Scott Dixon, running in 11th spot. One of the street masters of the Verizon IndyCar series, and we'll see what kind of strategy he's on here to try and get toward the front of the pack.
Rahal is all over Montoya.
Driving the car, I talked to him this morning. I said, is the car good? He goes, we've got our Long Beach setup on it. The car's working well. Almost not even making too many changes on it. He said, I'm just going to go out and drive it, and hopefully we get a great result.
Talked about the urgency for Graham Rahal to have a good result. You saw those numbers. The disappointing Indy 500 last week, but they are confident coming in here today that this is the beginning of an upswing for that team. Here's Scott Dixon, 4th in both races here in Detroit last year. Swept the doubleheader at Toronto. One of the drivers who seems to find a way to manage the strategy of these difficult track position races behind the wheel well to the advantage of his team.
I'd like to add one thing if I can, and he just had a big accident last Sunday at the end of the Indy 500, so he cannot be feeling 100% yet, and yet he is right in here in the mix, and he just knows how to get it done. Look at his finish this year.
Not often that the IndyCar drivers run double headers, but they do it a few times a year, and Scott Dixon has been the man in those double headers. Look at his numbers from last year.
And what we're also watching right now is Graham Rahal is definitely faster than the number 2 Verizon machine of Juan Pablo Montoya. He takes a run on him every once in a while, and Juan Pablo...
Don't let him frustrate you. You're doing great. No pressure.
There we go. And Juan Pablo closes the door on him. So here's some information that's coming from the pits over to Graham.
That's Takuma Sato in. Rick?
And he's not in for a good reason. They believe they've got some gearbox problems. He's brought the car in. They've shut it off. They're going to go to work in the back of the car. They're pulling the rear unit off, the rear wing off. They're going to start working on it. Remember, there's a lot of points at stake this weekend, so every position you get is going to be critical. But right now, it looks like they're sliding backwards.
And you know what else you think about in a situation like today where you've got a mechanical problem early? The rest of this race can be a test session, because you're going to run this very track in very similar weather conditions tomorrow.
And when we saw that last year, the second race was definitely different than the first. I have to go back to Conway. Conway is on the hard tires, and he's not only managing to keep up, he's putting Hinchcliffe under a lot of pressure.
Here comes Rahal.
There goes Rahal.
Yep. The power down situation that we spoke about, people turning those rear tires, spinning them, taking the grip away. And that's exactly what Juan Pablo was doing.
Great job, Graham. Mix 3.
Yeah, Graham knew it.
Mix 3. Always have to be managing the fuel strategy.
So now if he was on position 2, for instance, went to 3, maybe he's going to try and save a little bit of fuel on position 3. He would have went to a little richer, more fuel to try and get some horsepower to make that pass, which he got accomplished.
And there's Dixon just sticking his nose in there saying, Montoya, I'm next. And he is all over him, just like Rahal was. Montoya's not having a good start to this race. And there is nothing more frustrating than having to give up positions this early on.
So Montoya running in 10th, Dixon running in 11th position. Don't forget, this is just the first of 2 as Dixon goes for a run up the inside of Montoya for that spot. He'll have it.
Yeah, Montoya cannot get the power down coming out of the turns. People get a run on him. There's the back end sliding around again. Those rear tires in his car, he's just overcooked them, and they're now shot.
Sebastian Bourdais and Graham Rahal.
I think Rahal's going to get by him as easily as he did with Montoya.
Yeah,
and here he goes.
And these are areas where you generally can't get passes done in this section. Now coming up to the front stretch. Will he try here? He will.
Oh, that is so close. I have not seen anybody pass a car going into that corner.
He is focused. He's hooked up.
And he's a Rahal.
And his dad won here back in 1992, so pressure on the son to perform.
Juan Pablo Montoya is on the pit lane, Doc.
They had to call him in. The tires are just going away. He was skating in sideways. They had to come in and get the reds that are basically the softer tires that are just worn out and go to the blacks. Montoya having to pit early because the tires had gone away.
So Montoya's team makes the forced stop, and we'll see how that affects the play for them as this race goes on. All this action back in the middle of the field while Helio Castroneves continues to log laps leading up front. Back to Belle Isle after this from your ABC station. Caution has just come out. here at Belle Isle as the driver running in 4th place has gotten in trouble at the exit of turn 12. It's Mike Conway.
We talked about how bumpy this race circuit is, and if you're off just a little bit, you need that extra 6 inches that you don't have. The walls loom on either side, and we're not sure if he had some assistance by another driver to put him in there, but needless to say, Eddie, there's just no grass there to drive on like a natural terrain road course.
No, there's a lot of cement on both sides of this track, but he had made the right decision on tires.
Watch, he'll be right behind the blue and white car.
Oh, he's offline already on the way in. Yeah. So either something caused him to be offline with something mechanical on the car, or he just got too hot into the braking. But turn 12 is a high-speed right-hand turn. Enter in there at about 130 miles an hour.
Watch his steering wheel as he hits the wall.
That's called understeer, and he took his hands off the wheel to save himself from getting his hands caught in the wheel and breaking a thumb or finger or wrist. Smart move.
The Long Beach winner. And winner here of one of the races a year ago also. And one of the drivers that a lot of folks thought would be a favorite today is very dejected.
He was a surprise winner last year. He came here after having not driven for a while and just beat.
And you saw him looking at his left wrist, and he may have just got it caught just a little bit, and it doesn't take much as quickly as these steering wheels turn around. So I always say to people that if you're going to know you're going to hit the wall, you can't do anything more about it. You're not going to drive it, so take your hands off the wheel.
But Scott, on a circuit like this, you never give up. You're always trying to save it and do something, and right at the last second, he took his hands off it. He's obviously in pain.
To me, there's Ed Carpenter, the team owner and co-driver with Mike Conway. To me, that shows you how much that caught him by surprise.
Yes.
That crash. So we'll get an update as we can on Mike Conway. First, while we're under the yellow and the pace car gathers up the field, a reminder about Sunday Night Baseball when the Baseball Tonight crew takes over the telecast at Dodger Stadium as Andrew McCutcheon of the Pirates visit Yasiel Puig and the Dodgers. They'll have 7 commentators positioned around the ballpark to provide what should be a very unique broadcast. Sunday Night Baseball presented by Taco Bell, 8 Eastern on ESPN2 and also live on Watch ESPN. Michael Andretti on the radio to Ryan Hunter-Reay there.
When you're so close to a fuel window, which is usually lap 23 or 24 around here, maybe even 22, with this, everybody's going to come in, and this is going to be the interesting part now. A lot of pressure on the teams, the crew members, to get this right, because they want to try and get the car off the jack, serviced, and out of their pit box faster than the person that's directly in front of them, so the driver can gain a few spots on the pit road.
Here they come. Castroneves leads him in. Doc?
This yellow, a huge break for rookie Jack Hawksworth there in the 98 car. He had a tire going down, and Ryan Ernest and the team had lost telemetry and couldn't see it. Hawksworth said, we get a tire, and this yellow is going to save us. 4 tires, they're going to blacks. Jamie.
14 years ago, Elio Castroneves got his first ever IndyCar Series win and climbed the fence for the first time. Elio in the pit box saying the car is good, their fuel mileage is good, and it was a solid stop, Alan.
The second place car coming in, Jack Hawksworth, has troubles on the pit lane and is still sitting in his pit box.
From what I think I saw, it looked like the left front rotor was broken, so when the tire changer went to go change the tire, he saw that.
That's what he's picking up on the
Hawksworth
floor.
is now getting out, and he was running second. Young driver.
Wow, that's a heartbreaker, Doc.
Yeah, large chunks of carbon on the ground there in the left front, as you talked about. The great eyes there, Scotty. Be able to see that they pulled that tire off, and there were chunks of the rotor and chunks of the brakes. So obviously very, very hard on the brakes. And now Jack Hawksworth, after running second, having a great qualifying effort, so disappointed and climbing out of the car. Here, let's check in with Rick DeBrule.
Standing by with Ed Carpenter, team owner, and you had such a spectacular weekend going with Mike Conway in that car. Did he say anything? Was there a problem, or was it simply just over driving?
I don't think there's a problem. He said just got to understeer and got in the tires. You know, we were in pretty good shape, putting pressure on Hinch, and we were hitting our fuel number all at the same time. So, you know, it's the way it goes sometimes. I could tell by the way Mike sounded, you know, he felt bad. So hopefully we'll come back strong for tomorrow and get the Fuzzies car back up front. It's been a hard couple races for us.
Yeah, that's the one advantage. They have a second race tomorrow to redeem themselves.
So, the caution for Mike Conway's crash. Jack Hawksworth has trouble. The leaderboard is shaken up here a quarter of the way through at Belle Isle.
Some issues. Let's check in with car owner Brian Hunter. Brian, we heard Jack say he thought he had a tire going down, but it was not a tire. What was it?
No, the left front brake disc exploded. I've never seen it, but it's a heartbreaker because obviously we're having a great day. We're going to fix the car and get back out and try and run a few more laps, get some points, and look to try and do it tomorrow.
The little team that had a great qualifying run and was having a good run has an issue with a broken part, and now they go back on the track, but what a tough day for Jack Hawksworth.
Well, Brian Herta told you about tomorrow. It is a doubleheader weekend for the Verizon IndyCar Series, and the second half of our doubleheader from right here in Belle Isle is right here on ABC. Same time, 3:30 Eastern Time. Tomorrow, be interesting to see another qualifying session tomorrow morning and another 70-lap grind on this most difficult of tracks. So we've had an exchange of track position on strategy. Drivers who came in and pitted on the first caution, like Marco Andretti and Will Power and Mikhail Aloshin and Ryan Hunter-Reay and Charlie Kimball and Juan Pablo Montoya, stayed out under this yellow as expected. But the one guy who didn't pit under the first caution and didn't pit under the second caution is now the race leader, and that's Graham Rahal.
So at this point, you have to think that they are expecting another yellow here within 15 laps.
He doesn't have probably much more, even with the yellows, much more than 10, 12, maybe 15 laps left. That's the neat thing about this, because he's now running so strong. We just talked about it during break. he's been so quick here today that surprised he didn't come in with the other guys and run the same strategy. We'll see.
Here we go.
Don't expect Marco to just sit behind him.
Green flag, green flag.
Love to see a Rahal and an Andretti up the front again like we did many, many times before. There was a shot coming out of 2 all the way down the main straight, 170 miles an hour into turn 3. Hard on the brakes, 3.5 G's under braking.
And the Indy 500 champion is now 5th. A lot of it was done through pit stops, but he's in a strong position now.
Ryan Briscoe on Tony Kanaan picked up a spot. So Briscoe moves up to the 11th position.
Marco looking very strong.
Been out for so long now that his tires are just about used up, so trying to put the power down is really difficult for him, and Marco's looking just about every time he gets to a turn, he's trying to get around him. Jamie, you have some more?
2 great namesakes battling at the front, and Marco being very aggressive right now. Marco tried something different on the car yesterday. They had too much movement in his suspension, and they found something that was a little stiffer to help him on this bumpy course, and he was happier with it. But I asked him before he got in the car about today. He said it's just survival today, but right now their strategy, they're going to come in about 6 laps for Marco Andretti. Let's go over to Ray.
And talk about Graham Rahal. Think about this. You know, the team has kind of reformed over the winter. 2 of the people that they brought on were Bill Pappas and John Dick. Those were 2 guys who were with Dale Coyne last year engineering the car that Mike Conway drove to victory. So they came in here with some great knowledge, great expertise that they've been able to add to this car to help Graham Rahal out this weekend.
All right, Rick, so Graham Rahal leading Marco Andretti second. And let me just update that Marco is also on the same strategy that Rahal was, not yet pitted in the race, while Will Power was on the pit lane under the lap 6 yellow flag cycle of stops. And there is Will, who's now running 3rd. There is Jack Hawksworth back on track after the left front brake rotor change.
Very talented driver, very aggressive. Brian Herta is convinced he is going to be a champion in this series.
Rahal right now, it's been since Baltimore in 2013 that he's actually led.
He's smooth and smart here.
He's slowly but surely pulling away from Marco Andretti.
But to pit very soon for fuel.
We knew that was
going to
happen. We knew that was going to happen. What he desperately needs is a yellow. But counting on a yellow is a very bad play of strategy.
There's Castroneves in the 3. He was the driver who led the opening laps of this race until pitting at lap 17. So you see Castroneves back in 8th position now, leading the charge of the guys who are on fresher tires
and a bunch of fuel.
Yeah.
And a bunch of fuel.
Walking around the paddock this morning. All right, is this a 2-stop race? Is this a 3-stop race? Well, it's pretty much close to almost a 2-stop race, which is what a couple of different people said to us. It depends on the circumstance. If you get a few opportunities to run and save fuel and make a certain number, you can make it in 2. If not, then you're going to need a 3rd splash to make the distance. And how that plays out with the yellow flags and your track position is the great mystery of this one.
I think Hunter-Reay's looking really good, looking very strong. His strategy seems to be playing the way he wanted it to play.
Running in 5th now after starting on the back row. And what we don't know that they do from the onboard telemetry is what kind of fuel he's been making inside the car. And what I mean by that is fuel you're not burning, you're making.
But he was stuck in traffic. When you're stuck in traffic and you can't pass somebody, you just dial back and say, well, if I can't pass, I'm going to try to save everything I can. And he's proven that he can do everything. He's also one of those rare drivers that knows how to go fast and use very little fuel or tires.
Pitted at lap 6, did not pit at lap 17. Can he make enough fuel to make it from there Do the checkers and do the circumstances fall just right on just the one more stop?
I think it's very possible we'll see another yellow here at some point.
So approaching the window for a Graham Rahal pit stop and a Marco Andretti pit stop, which would turn the lead over to Will Power. For the time being, it's Power, Andretti, and Rahal. 3, 2, and 1 here on Belle Isle. And get ready for the race leader, Graham Rahal, to make what would be his first pit stop of the race. Rahal out in front by 2.2 seconds over Marco Andretti, who's also not yet stopped. Will Power is third. Mikhail Aloshin is fourth. Ryan Hunter-Reay is fifth. Elio Castroneves, the pole sitter and early leader of the race, runs in eighth. He's 10 seconds behind Rahal. It takes about 25 seconds to make the trip down the pit lane at pit speed and make your stop if everything goes right.
Graham right now, when he comes in, he'll be putting on, I'm sure, a set of reds. He could make it to the end of the race now, but with one more stop. So
I wouldn't count on the reds making it to the end.
That's what I was going to mention. The reds are falling off, so he'll probably only have them on for a short amount of time. Rick?
Interesting to point out, just a couple laps ago, Graham set the fastest lap of the race on these black sidewall tires. Normally we think of the reds as being the faster tires, but the blacks were faster for him. We see Elio Castroneves going by on the front straightaway. A clean stop, and Graham Rahal is away.
That was a perfect pit stop. Now, if he's going to make these reds last, he's going to have to take it easy.
Watch the line, leaving pit exit. Keep those wheels where they're supposed to be.
So that drops him as a look inside of Hinchcliffe by Scott Dixon briefly.
He was under a lot of pressure.
By his teammate Ryan Briscoe. Tony Kanaan, another Ganassi driver, directly behind him.
Hinchcliffe in 8th, Dixon 9th, Briscoe 10th, Kanaan 11th in that group. Joseph Newgarden also is there at the tail end of that line. So Marco Andretti now leads and waiting to see when he presents himself on the pit lane for the first time.
It won't be long.
Saavedra trying to have a little look on his teammate, Sebastian Bourdais. This is so bumpy here. You see the cars jostle along, and
Wilson gets through.
And Andretti is in.
Now we'll see if they can beat the 8.7 pit stop that Rahal did.
Here he comes, Jamie.
And Marco Andretti's father, Michael, won 2 times here in Detroit. So Marco going to be similar to Graham Rahal, and they're going with the sticker red. So a little bit different strategy here. We'll see how that plays out. Little turn of front wing, help the handling of that car. Actually, they made a few turns of front wing, 9.5 seconds. Pretty good, Alan.
It was a little bit slower.
Now you see Graham Rahal in front of Andretti on the blend off the pit lane. So now Will Power is the leader. And again, the variety of pit stop schedules we have going here. Power, Aloshin, Ryan Hunter-Reay, and Charlie Kimball, along with Juan Pablo Montoya, the top 5, all stopped at lap number 6 and did not pit at lap 17.
Whoa, that was pushing that. Sliding it and just putting his foot on the gas. His Chevy Power down on the ground.
He's putting some of it on the ground. The reason he's sliding is that it won't all go on the ground.
Through turn 1, through turn 2, 4th gear. Now he'll come over that leap that we have there, go over the bump. There's a small bridge that's there now, up to turn 3, 170 miles an hour now, down to hard braking zone.
So after making his pit stop, you see Graham Rahal caught in some traffic now.
Sato's several laps down.
He's 4 laps down to be specific, Takuma Sato.
He has to be patient here. He has to take his time and pass the cars one by one. He has a very strong car. At any point, the strategy could fall in his favor. And those reds, if you use those reds too aggressively, they've seemed to go off very quickly at the start of the race.
And you can see how good the car is under braking because those red tires are fresh. He's got lots of grip under braking. This is where he needs to work on getting the car set up for him to come off of turn number 7. To be able to pass the 7, he needs a good shot coming out of 6 here. Get on the power smoothly, get a little bit of a draft going, but he's not on soon enough, Eddie.
And what he has to be cognizant of is the car ahead of him. Sato is also dealing with another car that he's trying to pass, so you have to capitalize on that dip in momentum like Saavedra is having right now. And he rightfully pulls his nose out of that one because that was not going to work.
Now Saavedra is now racing for position with Rahal here. That would be 15th and 16th.
But he is so much slower in the corners than Rahal is. That one's done.
Yeah, that was because Saavedra was offline a couple turns earlier, didn't get it back online to come onto the long stretch.
And he's in the pits. Saavedra's in the pits. And Marco's not too far behind.
Rick?
Yeah, Saavedra brings the car, and I was talking with him yesterday about this racetrack. He said, you know, this is a man's track. This is a track where you cannot be at a slight moment giving up slightly. Nice quick stop, and he's away. Obviously doing very well, but he's got to have better tires under him right now.
Very efficient work there.
Power's all over the place, but he has just set the fastest lap of the race. So he's trying to make up as much time as he can if he does have to pit under green.
.8-second lead of Power back to Mikhail Aloshin, and there you hear the call to Will Power to pit this lap. So Power, Aloshin, Hunter-Reay, and Charlie Kimball, the top 5.
Kimball having a very good race today.
Our Novo Nordisk on board for Charlie Kimball, and here is Will Power giving up the lead, Jamie.
What a weekend it has been for Will Power. Been all over the map, not in the right direction, but it was good to be out front. You can see how his car handled out front. Sticker blacks there. They fill him up with Sunoco fuel. Make sure it's filled up here, and a lot of that chatter about fuel conservation here.
The last lap was the first lap a Russian driver has ever led an IndyCar lap. Aloshin is in the lead with P1.
There he is. Imagine packing up from your home, moving by yourself halfway around the world, renting a place in a brand new city where you don't really know anybody except the people who just hired you that you don't really know all that well.
But he knows how to drive a race car. That's all that really counts.
That's the story of Mikhail Aloshin from Moscow, who has shown some good pace and good speed, though taking a few lumps as a rookie driver trying to learn IndyCar, the chassis, and what makes them tick, and the circuits like this one where he's never raced before.
But he's earning the right to be here every lap he takes. He is definitely quick. But he is going to be in the pits like everybody else pretty soon for some fuel.
Got a great personality, too. He's easy to talk to.
Another lap. This is where the engineers had to take that gamble of thinking, how much fuel can we actually suck out of the tank? And sometimes they get it wrong. It takes nothing more than 3 tablespoons to not make it into the pits. I've been there. It's very annoying when that happens.
And he just got the word to pit this next time around, so he has about 2 more miles before he'll have an opportunity to go in there. When I spoke to him yesterday morning, he was a little bit dejected because at that time his teammate Simon Pagenaud was the quickest on the chart, and he was at the very bottom, and he said, I know I have a good car, I just need to learn how to drive around the circuit because the car that Simon has is identical to mine. I need to improve. So he's logging miles, learning, and as you mentioned, a guy that comes to a new racetrack, new country.
He knows what the word pit means. It must be the same in Russian.
Started at the back, so they're working the strategy, trying to get him some track position. Obviously, they've worked it to get him up to the lead. Now he'll stop and shuffle back to the pack, but we'll see how it all plays out as we've still got 39 laps to go.
At some point, some driver is going to be lucky and pit when that yellow comes out. And that yellow will inevitably come out. And that's when all their strategies fall into place, because every time you pit under a green, you lose 25 seconds.
Aloshin and Hunter-Reay both in. And looks like Kimball's also coming in, Doc.
And what a rally for the talented Russian rookie driver here, Mikhail Aloshin. They're going to make no changes on the car, just 4 tires, and get it completely full of Sunoco fuel. Holding for the fuel, and he's away. Rick.
Down here with Ryan Hunter-Reay, once again a little bit low on the left rear. They send him back out. Earlier they were talking about potentially saving fuel, but towards the end of that stint, they just said, go for it, use the fuel.
Kimball ahead of Hunter-Reay on that exchange of stops.
Hunter-Reay did not have the fastest of pit stops.
Sometimes weekends work out well for you, and sometimes they don't. And
here's Ray Hall looking to the inside of Hunter-Reay down to turn 3.
Now, Ray Hall had a hot set of tires, and Hunter-Reay had a cold set of tires, and that makes a lot of difference when you try to stop a car at 170 miles an hour.
For Ryan Hunter-Reay, even though you want to try and challenge the driver that's on the inside, if you end up locking up the brakes, you flat spot those tires, and then you have to live with it until the next pit stop.
So that has finished the cycle of pit stops for those who made the early yellow and then stayed out under the later caution as Hunter-Reay goes back after Ray Hall. That was tight. Turn 7. It's a right-hander.
I am the Indy 500 champion, and I am coming through. And he did. It didn't take him long to gain temperature those tires, did he?
Yeah, but I'm going to say that for Graham Rahal, his car does not like those red sidewall tires, does not handle well.
Well, that's just tough right now because he's got them.
So the driver who started on pole led the opening cycle of the race, cycles back to the front. Castroneves out in front, and we're back to Belle Isle after this from your ABC station. Halfway through today's Verizon IndyCar Series race at Belle Isle, our mother's race rundown. Elio Castroneves qualified on pole this morning. Had a little trouble getting away from the grid, but eventually took his place in the #1 starting spot and has led most of the laps in this one so far. Couple of the pre-race favorites taken out in incidents.
He was just a question of being in the wrong place, and for some way, I don't know how it happens, but Power and Simon Pagenaud keep having problems with each other on the track, and Pagenaud always has the rough end of it.
So Pagenaud out, and the other driver who won here a year ago, Mike Conway.
And looks like car would not turn for him. We'll call that understeer. Watch the steering wheel now. Turning it, nothing happens. He ends up going into the wall. Luckily and smartly takes his hands off the steering wheel before the car impacts the wall.
That was a nice way of saying he had a mistake.
So the two cautions you have seen for the incidents involving Pagenaud and Conway, and Castroneves now back out in front after the pit stop cycle is complete by 5 seconds over James Hinchcliffe, who runs second, Scott Dixon third, Ryan Briscoe fourth. Running order coming across the top of your screen. Now, while we were away, Graham Rahal made a stop on pit road under the green flag. He's now running in 17th position, 44 seconds off the race lead. Listen.
Focusing. You got to run hard now. We need hard laps. Obviously.
Obviously.
I know that. I'm driving the car.
Nothing like communicating with your dad on the radio.
Well, and he came in, he had just changed his tires because he had to put some red sidewall tires on. It did not match the setup for his car, so he wasn't happy with that. So he came back in and put the black sidewalls on the primary, which car was working very well for him earlier.
On a positive side, he's now gotten that red set out of the way. He doesn't have to think about it anymore, but some of his competitors still do.
Right, and the rule being is that you actually have to use each set for at least 2 laps.
To put Castroneves' run in perspective, if he looks in his mirrors, he doesn't see anything. He's just doing his own race. He's checked out. He's keeping everything under control. He's turning his risk down as much as he can. He's probably saving fuel. And everybody behind him is having to fight for the position they're in. He is not.
What we look for is how smoothly the car goes around the turn and over the bumps. And when you watch Elio's car, it just seems like it absorbs all the bumps on the road much easier than the other cars. And, you know, when you've got a road car, if it's a sports suspension car, and you drive with your buddy and it goes, man, I can feel every bump in the road. That's exactly what we feel in this course here.
Oh, trouble. Joseph Newgarden.
Are we going to be okay to continue, Joseph? No, we're not. I got brake lock up and locked it up into the corner.
That is at the end of that long backstretch in turn 7.
Yeah, it has rearranged the left front corner. Well, it's,
you're really grasping for making the horrible.
It's a little
seem
askew,
good
I'd say.
He went straight and hit something hard, but he's okay.
Well, you know, we've both done the same thing, so I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe a squirrel ran out in front of him. Don't we use that on the road?
A big squirrel.
Well, Joseph Newgarden had made some nice moves in the early part of the race, but that barrier caught him up here in turn 7. Watch the 7 and the 14 top of the screen. Mikhail Aloshin has just been issued a penalty for blocking.
And it was flagrant. That is not how you're supposed to do it. The rule is, if you act proactively and you're the first one to move, that's fine, but you can't cut somebody off that's already initiated a pass.
And it was crazy because Takuma Sato was 4 laps down from everybody else in the field right now, so that was not for position.
So third caution of the race is out, just a couple of laps past halfway. Makes the pit strategy thing even a little more interesting.
But it's starting to define himself. We're past the halfway mark. And we're under yellow, and a lot of cars that pitted under green. What's that water there?
That's when he hit the barriers. There's some water inside it from all the rain they had here a couple days before we got here. We've seen that a couple of times this weekend in some other series.
It'll be a while before they clean that up.
Drivers, because Eddie, you and I have lived this before, you're just taking a rest, you're making your wrist move, you're trying to get some breath back because you've been driving the thing so hard. You're now starting to feel about every place in your body is starting to ache. I'm just thinking that I'm only halfway.
little bit more than halfway, but you're right. It's a good time to regroup and figure out what to tell the engineers to make the car.
Interesting. Ryan Briscoe, the first to make the move to pit lane from 4th place, Rick.
Ryan Briscoe's been looking for a break all year. Biggest problem they've been having was qualifying. They needed to start up front. They were able to do that this race. He's been able to manage the car properly, stay up with the front pack, and he's out.
And Marco Andretti gets the countdown by Kyle Moyer. They will put blacks on again. Remember, they had the reds on last time, so they had that short stint. They can get these tires back on, the ones they prefer. They filled him up with Sunoco fuel, and down and away he goes.
So just a few takers on the pit lane under this yellow flag.
But Marco hung it out with those reds, and he got to pit under a yellow, which makes a lot of difference.
There's Joseph Newgarden walking away from where his car has come to rest, and it has put us under caution for the 3rd time in this race. You mentioned all that water that we saw in the days leading up to when we got here. They had some tremendous rainstorms here. In fact, the folks with the state that are in charge of this place and Roger Penske's team did a tremendous amount of work to try and get the grounds ready for the fans that are here today. It was a big challenge, and obviously some water in some of those tire barriers as well. And Joseph Newgarden just freed it quite accidentally. Detroit, the D-Town, the Motor City, Motown, Hockey Town. A place that drips with sweat built on a backbone of steel. Roger Penske helped build this town and is now helping build it back. He knows that a win here is a tribute to a way of life. The hard way. The Detroit way. The captain, who sees his driver Helio Castroneves that he's calling the strategy for leading this race, also in his organization serving as race promoters here. He was part of the committee that brought the Super Bowl to Detroit a few years ago, and of course Penske Corporation based here in the Detroit area. In the shadow of the Renaissance Center downtown with that big General Motors Chevy sign not accidentally pointed toward the racetrack. Roger and his team, Chevy powered, out in front of this race and pondering the strategy. What's the right call to make to keep Castroneves in that #1 spot to the checkered flag?
What we mustn't forget is that they came so close of winning the Indianapolis 500. It was a perfect end between two great teams and two great drivers. Had Castroneves won, he would have been the 4th of that super club of having won Indy 4 times. But I've always looked at Mr. Penske as America's version of Enzo Ferrari. Everything he's done in racing has been exceptional.
You see some of the track sweepers out now cleaning up part of the course, extending the yellow just a little bit, and they've also got that water they're cleaning up out by turn 7 where Joseph Newgarden hit the tire barrier there to bring out this yellow flag. 30 laps to go, drying it up. We're back to Belle Isle after this from your ABC station. Jimmy Kimmel Live is the late night destination this week. Guest list includes Tom Cruise, One Republic, Alyssa Milano, and on Monday, Dr. Phil. On Jimmy Kimmel Live, late nights 11:35, 10:35 Central on ABC. See you loan someone your boat for the day there, Mr. Cheever. A little cruise down the river. Which one is your cabin?
Mine is the one all the way in the back.
In the stern, as it would be?
Yes.
Well. And on Belle Isle, as that steamer passes by that I don't think is going anywhere just for a one-night trip, we watch Helio Castroneves lead behind the pace car, the safety crew continuing to clean up the water over in turn 7, and the strategy plays beginning to become clear. Let's check down in the pit lane with Doc.
A lot of calculations going on down here in the Target Ganassi pit, and Mike Hall calling the shots for Scott Dixon. And Mike, we heard you were getting ready to call Scott in. At the last minute, you said, stay out, stay out. What are you trying to do now?
Well, we were trying to get to our window. The way that this thing is going, following the pace car, we're going to be well inside the window before it goes green here. That's what we were just talking about. We think the whole field is going to come here if we keep following the pace car to get to the end.
How much further can you make it, and what fuel you got left?
Well, it depends on how long we're behind the pace car. Probably 5 or 6 laps here. And if we get there, then we're pretty good to the end in terms of being able to turn it up and go, and that's what we want to do now.
All right, trying to get in the window, get plenty of fuel so he can get after it. Let's check in with Rick DeBrule.
Talking about Ryan Briscoe's team, and they're not quite that optimistic. They're just assuming that they're going to have to do one more stop. On the other hand, if they get lucky and those yellow flags do come in, they'll do more. But once again, right now, they're assuming they're going to do one more stop. Jamie?
Marco pitted, and then he came on the radio and said, was I supposed to pit at the end of the yellow? They said, yes, that's what we wanted to do, but we didn't want to broadcast it, and that is why you just saw him pit at the end of the yellow to top off with fuel.
So for Marco right now, what he's trying to do is maybe this will be his last stop if there's enough yellow laps, guys, that he will not have to come in for a splash.
And let everybody else have to come in behind them and come back out onto the track after they're gone. Ryan Briscoe was the first off the pit lane of the group of cars that stopped when the yellow came out.
One thing to think about, Ryan, we may come in with 10 or 12 laps to the end. If you want the second set of scrub reds, or save those for tomorrow. I felt like there was more grip on the black personally, but that could have been the track.
Tire choices, fuel strategies.
That's a head scratcher for me. How can one group think they're going to make it to the end? Another group is saying they're going to have to pit 11 laps from the end. That does not make sense.
That's why we race. That's what makes this all very interesting. But for right now, for Ryan Briscoe, I think the interesting point is he's not trying to decide what he's going to do with tires, because he's got to think about tomorrow. Remember, 8 sets of the primary black wall tires, 3 sets of the option red, but you have to keep something in the bank for tomorrow. And these guys have already used 1 set of reds up.
So here's the front of the pack. Elio Castroneves, James Hinchcliffe, Scott Dixon. Will we see anybody dive onto the pit lane, as Mike Hall hinted might be possible, as this caution draws toward its conclusion? Here they come to the pit opening.
And the leading group decides not to.
One does.
Okay, we're going green next time. Going green next time.
That's Mika Leloshin, who, remember, got that penalty for blocking a little while ago.
So a set of primary tires coming off the car, same type of tires going on.
But they're brand new.
Lots of grip, and he's also hoping there might be a yellow out there that he doesn't have to come back in.
The other one on the pit lane was Jack Hawksworth, who's 4 laps down. Remember, had that left front brake rotor shatter when he made a pit stop while running in 2nd place earlier in the race. So when will we see the leaders in? How does it shuffle up the track position? Marco Andretti and Justin Wilson and Carlos Huertas and now Mika Leloshin have topped off the fuel later in this caution. And it's one where the numbers are being calculated, recalculated, double-checked, and then the head shakes and said, I'm not sure that's right, I'm going to do it again.
Yeah, and then if you did it wrong, then you come in and look at your team and go, why didn't we do what they did?
Yeah.
How many laps do they get with a full tank with no yellows?
23, 22, 23.
We have 27 to go.
And we're about ready to go
Now,
green.
I might not have a PhD in math, but something's not quite right.
I've seen you pay the tab at night at dinner, so I understand that.
Get the track position when these other guys pit. If you're Marco Andretti, turn the fuel down and try your best to hold it.
If you're going to be pitting under a green and everybody else is pitting under a yellow, you are in trouble.
Position 3.
If the guys that pitted under yellow can make it to the finish. If.
That's a big if.
Yep. See, Carlos Huertas is under review. We'll follow up on that in a minute. Here we come to the restart.
Very important that Elio Castroneves puts a gap between him and Hinchcliffe right from the beginning. That way he can pace himself.
Hinch is very twitchy, trying to keep the pace up. You hear him push the button. That's that push the pass that the cars have. They have the opportunity to push it and get some more power.
Here comes Hunter-Reay down the inside.
Ray, Tony Kanaan, Graham Rahal with a move back there.
And Tony Kanaan's coming back. No, he decides not to.
This is when you're driving so hard, just trying to get the power down the ground.
There's
Tony
Kanaan.
says, I will surprise you. Graham Rahal now going to have a look at Ryan Hunter-Reay. Ryan Hunter-Reay does not seem to be able to get the power down very well. We saw Dixon looking on Hinchcliffe. Hinchcliffe went for the inside line to give a tight line. Same with Juan Pablo Montoya. Look at everybody
Rahal was sideways
around.
going in.
And on the inside, Ryan Hunter-Reay in the yellow DHL car up over the curb.
And Marco, look at Marco.
And you're doing this with walls on both sides.
Marco's going for another one.
Yep.
That's Takuma Sato, who's 4 laps down. He just passed. The guy sliding back in this group was Sebastian Bourdais in the 11, who just lost about 3 or 4 spots in that one lap. Green and white car. We'll follow up on that in a minute. There's a pass. Tony Kanaan through Juan Pablo Montoya. Kanaan in the black machine moves up a position.
Drop 1 overtake remaining.
And Rahal tries the outside on Montoya. And here comes Montoya back.
Now, just a Formula One style driver, going to drive very deep into the turn. Get on the brakes at the very last minute. And they're 170 miles an hour in that turn, don't forget.
We now have 25 laps to go to the end of the race.
See the power down. Montoya's had this problem all day long, trying to put his power down, squeezing the throttle, and the back tires start to spin.
And if you do that too long, you have no grip at all.
Left or right? Which way are we going to go?
Left.
We're going to go left. But Montoya's on the inside.
Outside, inside, clear.
Montoya's kind of taking Rahal to school on this.
See that Montoya has used up most of his allotment of push to pass. Remember, they have that button on the steering wheel where they get that momentary boost of horsepower. They get 10 of them a race. Montoya's got 3 left.
Rahal is definitely quicker. He must not lose his patience.
And you can't make a pass there if you don't have it started coming in that previous turn. You're right, he needs to be patient here, start the setup going down the straight.
Race leaders in the pit. Elio Castroneves is on the pit lane. James Hinchcliffe also comes in on the pit lane. While we watch Graham Rahal work over Juan Pablo Montoya. Jamie?
They've got to nail these pit stops here. Elio Castroneves has dominated today's race. Roger Penske saying, watch me, meaning we're going to take just enough fuel. Go is the call, 8.6 seconds. Meanwhile, James Hinchcliffe was sitting there, a little bit longer pit stop for him all the way down in the #1 pit box for James Hinchcliffe.
So Hinchcliffe and Castroneves are now on the same strategy.
They blend back in 15th and 16th places in line. Sebastian Saavedra right there, trying to get a spot back.
Don't touch.
Hinch doesn't want to let him in front of him just because he knows he's got more speed. He wants to be able to keep pace with Elio Castroneves that's just ahead of him. But you don't want to put your foot on the brake so much that you flat spot those tires because you'll have a vibration for the remainder of the race.
So Scott Dixon is now the leader. Will Power second. Carlos Munoz third. Running order coming across the top of the screen. And Marco Andretti right there. Ryan Briscoe. Those guys, ones to watch where this alternating flip-flop of fuel strategy is concerned. Expecting to see Dixon in here.
We're ready.
Being followed down the pit lane. Will Power now the leader. That was Munoz coming in. Doc?
Scott Dixon comes in as the leader. Final pit stop for the day. They will get it full of Sunoco fuel and go to the red tires. Softer, faster, but don't last as long. Getting it full of fuel. Grip.
The Indy 500 champion brings the car in. They take the red tires off, put the black tires on. From now on, it's just a sprint to the finish.
Here comes Munoz out as well.
Great pit stop work. One of those pit stops was 7.4 seconds.
Okay, we're pushing hard to the end. We're pushing hard to the end. Go as fast as you can.
So that pushing hard means
Dixon and Hinchcliffe.
almost Dixon and Hinchcliffe. And
And
Saavedra is
Saavedra.
not going to hang around, is he?
You've seen this before. When you come out of the pit lane, boy, you want to make sure that you're so kind with that car. Try not to let Saavedra pass. Dixon's just trying to get some temperature up on the tires.
Saavedra is showing a lot of constraint here. He's taking his time. There were 2 or 3, those 3 passes we've seen him attempt. He could have kept on going and had the right because he was inside.
And Saavedra has just been on and off the pit lane, so he is racing these guys for track position. Rick?
Charlie Kimball brings the car in. He was talking yesterday about just how incredibly bumpy this track is and how difficult it is to come to grips, saying really it's pretty much the bumpiest place out here. Fortunately, the strategies worked well, been able to move up. He has a nice clean stop and he's away.
So Kimball rejoins. There goes Dixon, there goes Saavedra. And Munoz comes up on Kimball at the pit exit there.
The top 9 cars, the top 7 cars have the harder compound.
see how much more grip you have with a set of tires that are warm and you've been out there for a few laps versus the cold tires.
But that wasn't even close.
No, that was just...
he braked about 50 yards later than Kimball did.
So here's the situation as it sits now on strategy. Will Power, Tony Kanaan, Graham Rahal, Juan Pablo Montoya. They run first, second, third, and fourth. And they have yet to pit in this cycle of stops. They're a little bit off schedule with the others who just came in, and they've got some laps to play with before they have to come down the pit lane. Then you've got Ryan Briscoe. Remember, we heard the report from his pit that they might have to pit with about 11 laps to go and possibly look for another set of tires. Then you get back to Marco Andretti, who may be on the run to try and make it to the finish. Here's Montoya, Doc.
Final pit stop of the day for Juan Pablo, two-time pole sitter here, going to black tires. Got to be flawless, got to be quick. Got to wait on fuel, waiting. Clock ticking, almost 10 seconds on pit road for Montoya.
That was 2.5 seconds slower than his teammate's pit stop was.
Needed more fuel.
He needed more fuel later in the race?
Yeah. Used more. You see the way he was fighting with those guys out there trying to hang on?
That might all that wheel spin.
21 laps to go. Will Power's the leader in Detroit. Baseball action tomorrow on Sunday Night Baseball, and a special telecast as the Baseball Tonight crew takes over at Dodger Stadium. 7 commentators around the stadium to provide a unique perspective for you. Sunday Night Baseball presented by Taco Bell. It's the Pirates and the Dodgers at 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2 and also live on Watch ESPN. Should be some fun from Chavez Ravine here on Belle Isle in downtown Detroit. Will Power is the race leader. An event that has seen 3 different caution flags, a couple of the pre-race favorites taken out in those incidents, and now a fuel strategy unwinding that's altering track position and leaving the outcome in doubt for the moment. The race leaders Will Power. Tony Kanaan is second. Graham Rahal is in 3rd position, followed by Ryan Briscoe and Marco Andretti. Those are your top 5. Our Carfax race summary and what has happened so far today. Those 3 cautions when Simon Pagenaud tangled with Will Power back at lap number 4, when Mike Conway hit the outside wall back at lap 15, and then when Joseph Newgarden crashed at lap 37. There are the lap leaders. Castroneves, starting on pole, has done most of the leading, though finds himself in 9th right now by this shuffling of pit strategy.
He finds himself in 9th, but a lot of the cars ahead of him will not make it to the end of the race unless they come in and get some fuel.
Tony Kanaan, Graham Rahal racing for 2nd and 3rd. They're 5 seconds behind Will Power. have watched Mr. Rahal wrestle that car today. He's had a real solid drive as we look at our Honda telemetry.
On the gas so hard coming out of the turn. Now down the winding backstretch. Straight.
Push the pass and we can
Watch the speed climb here. Should be about 167. Just saw 168 for a moment. Back down through the gearbox. Now through the fountain turns. This is where it's so rough and so much transitions through the steering wheel into the driver's hands and the arms. And you're just being punished all the way through here. Remember, this is a street course, so when you go across the track, you fall off on the opposite side of it from the crown in the road that drains the water. So all these drivers feel like they got grip mid-turn, and now the car wants to slide right towards the wall.
The leader's in. Jamie?
Will Power was happy out there leading. You see him pull a tear off so he can see clear view ahead as he pulls into the pit box. Tim Cindric with the call. They will put 4 sticker tires on there. Put just enough fuel to make it to the end, so the car is light enough, fast enough. 7.6 seconds, last pit stop for Will Power.
And the next one that comes in will be Rahal.
That's Takuma Sato, who is not on the lead lap, 4 laps down after a gearbox problem earlier in the race. This is not for position, but Sato on the hotter tires, charges on through.
Pushes that ABC machine right down the inside of Will Power. Now Will has to just let those tires come up to pressure and to temperature and go back and get past Sato. Look at this traffic jam we got going on.
Alotion there, 7, red, white, and blue.
Again.
James Hinchcliffe in blue and white. And the green and white car right behind them is Carlos Munoz. And that's for 9th, 10th, and 11th. Marco Andretti leading this charge in 5th place.
Now for Marco, Justin Wilson, and Carlos, those guys all came in about the same time, so it makes me wonder if they're just trying to run a smooth pace here, try to save fuel, make it to the end. They really almost need a yellow here for a couple of laps to do it, but if they really conserve enough, might be able to get it done.
Kanana's in the pits.
Go ahead, Doc.
Routine pit stop, great pit stop by the Ganassi crew and Tony Kanaan. 4 tires got it full of fuel, and Kanaan on blacks headed back out for the final 15 laps.
And here comes Marco leading that group.
Marco Andretti, blue and yellow car, pressured heavily by Justin Wilson. You see Tony Kanaan ahead of them on the track. That's big. Wilson, Andretti.
And Justin Wilson, that Boy Scouts of America car, side by side. Who's going to brake later? We touch, we bump. Pardon me. I love that one. I think Marco's been trying to conserve fuel to get himself to the end, but right now he does not going to have enough speed trying to conserve fuel when you got guys like Elliott behind you and Tony Kanaan that just pitted up ahead of you that have fresh rubber and full fuel, and they'll be of the race.
One person they're not going to catch is Kanaan. He is out of their reach.
Graham Rahal's in, Rick.
Bobby Rahal,
yellow
has the car, and we've got a spin on the track right now.
7 car, Mikhail Alotion is turned around, exit turn 7.
Remember we were talking about a yellow for guys like Marco Andretti? Oh, and had he come in?
Can't come in now.
Nope.
Hey, there's no
Graham Rahal.
Graham Rahal was in already.
Go get him. You can beat him up.
Alotion upset. And the caution is out for where that car sits.
Now we're going to have a sprint to the end. So all those convoluted strategies become almost irrelevant.
4th caution flag of the race. And please get me back in. I want to get going. You can understand the frustration.
The corner workers have to be very careful when they go on the track. Very careful.
To be spun to the outside at the exit of that corner.
There were 2 things that happened there.
Makes me think that this wasn't a 1-car incident.
No.
what we're going to watch here for James Hinchcliffe, I'm going to circle him right now. So just watch as we come down here, winding down the backstretch. He's going to take the opportunity because there's a car passing Aloshin, so he thinks I can get through there at the same time. Goes up and over the curb, maybe a little bit ambitious. Here we go. We're going to look at it from the tall camera now.
Hinchcliffe got out of the way, over the curb. So Hinchcliffe gave him a lot of room. He went all the way outside of the track, and Aloshin turned in and clipped his right rear tire.
Well, get the 7 spun around and fired up, and he will continue, but Aloshin has lost a lap.
Broke my front wing.
And a chance for a good finish has been turned upside down. So there's your race leader. Remember, we heard radio, possibly having to pit with 11 laps to go. Now that fuel turned all the way on lean for Ryan Briscoe.
And there's no way he's going to make 11 laps under this yellow. This is a very short yellow. The car's been turned around. What was it, 3 laps under yellow, Scott?
We're at probably 3 right now. Remember, he last pitted in lap 38.
He's got to come in. He cannot make it to the end. I think the driver who stands the best chance right now is Rahal, because he has a quicker car than Power. I think he can give Power a hard time. So Kanaan is not weak either, Alan.
Aloshin is fired up and continued on away, and
Fixture 8.
and we work the caution for the 4th time in this one. Here is the field. There's Briscoe. The lap car of Takuma Sato is next in line. Then you get to Will Power, Graham Rahal, Tony Kanaan, Justin Wilson.
And we talk about the extra boost of power you get by the push to pass. Briscoe has 5 left, Power has 3, Graham Rahal has 6. Kanaan only has 1 left. But the question is with Briscoe,
I don't think that makes that much difference around here.
I think coming off turn 2 down towards turn 3, I bet you get another couple of miles an hour of the car. You certainly get that boost of power to be able to come out of 2 and be able to get up beside somebody.
But he's out of the picture. He's a few laps down.
Right here, buddy, right here.
Gearbox trouble earlier in the race for the AJ Foyt team, and Takuma Sato 4 laps down in 18th place. Scott Dixon came onto the pit lane here. Get the red tires off the car.
This is going to be a mad rush to the end from here.
I was thinking what that run down to turn 3 after this restart's going to be like. Some of the guys that have led this race all day, like Helio Castroneves, find themselves back in 8th behind these guys that have played the strategy to get up front.
Turn 3, why don't they just, I think they'll probably start in turn 1 and 2.
Yeah.
We only will have 13 laps to go.
Down to pit lane, Rick.
Standing by with Bobby Rahal, he was just giving Graham the latest update on how many push-to-passes he's got. You guys look pretty excited when that yellow flag came out. What was your strategy?
Well, Power, we were on the same strategy as Power and Kanaan, and so we had to gap the field as much as we could because Marco had pitted so early. He's going like 3 seconds a lap slower, holding everybody up. And if we gapped him, we could get out ahead of him. So when Kanaan pitted, we had to cover ourselves. And also, had it gone yellow, full course yellow, we would have been stuck. So that's why we said, let's pit now, and boy, it couldn't have worked out any better.
I can tell you, these guys down here right now think they can smell blood in the water. They know they just have 1 car to get ahead of, and they're in great shape.
Here's the deal, Ryan. We were going to stop earlier than we anticipated because you had such a big gap, and we were afraid of a yellow that did just catch us out. We have enough fuel. We're going to try to run as far as we can. You run as hard as you can, see what kind of gap we end up with.
They're risking it.
Reaction to that, yeah.
They are risking it. They're counting on another yellow.
I thought all along when you work to get that track position,
And you have about
that's it.
4 laps.
You don't give it up.
Your bet's made. You've got to
Yeah.
find a way to play it out to the finish from there.
It's everything or nothing. And I think since there's not many laps to go, you can expect something to happen.
Got something to add to that, Rick?
They were just setting up for Briscoe to come in. when that yellow flag came out, and the team just looked at us and said, yeah, now we're really out of luck in this one.
Yeah, I would, unfortunately, that's true.
Okay, Ryan, if you want to, 3 of the 4 overtakes, I would save 1 for the restart after you come in.
Yeah, we have 12 laps to go.
You're right, Eddie. All we can hope for is that you go a couple of laps, there's another yellow. By the time they get cleaned up.
Even then, I mean, it had to be a horrible yellow that would keep
It
the
will
track
be
blocked
a
for
short
9
stop.
laps.
It'll be on tires, more or less. Copy.
He's had a great run.
Qualified well, great weekend.
Yeah.
And he gets to come back tomorrow, do it again.
Your strategy's made at this point, and if the cautions didn't fall your way and the decisions you made on the earlier yellows aren't working out by the way the yellows have fallen.
You know what I love, Alan, at this point of the race is that it falls in the driver's lap. Strategy goes out of the window, and every driver has to judge how much he's willing to risk to pass a car ahead of him. And the top 10 cars are all fast.
Briscoe.
The last restart, it was going to be cars all over the place, sliding all over the place. That's exactly what's going to happen.
It's going to start happening in turn 1.
Pace car pulling away and off. Ryan Briscoe, Will Power, Graham Rahal. Here we go.
Look for Rahal. Look for Rahal.
Will Power, that is verging on taking up the room where the guy was going to go.
I think the word for that is defensive driving, which you could expect at this point of the race. Rahal has Kanaan behind him, and Kanaan is not somebody that hangs around when it's time to get going for the last restart.
Rahal did use a push to pass that time. Unfortunately, was not able to get it completed. Look at them spinning the tires, just putting their foot on the gas.
They really want the tire temperature to come up as quickly as they can. They cannot wait a lap and a half.
Because they have been told, both Will Power and Rahal and Kanaan know that Ryan Briscoe that's leading, their teams have told them that Briscoe has to come in. So they know that Power, Rahal, those guys are fighting for the win.
Briscoe's irrelevant at this point.
No Power, pressuring in there.
There goes Power.
He knows he needs to get past him, and now he's got a car between him and Rahal, and he will push as hard as he can. Now Rahal's got to be smart about this.
And it's a really bad place. It's a very difficult place to pass.
Briscoe's one side to the other. See,
170 miles
I wouldn't have done it there. I would have waited, used my push to pass, and right now coming out of 2 and get him going down to 3. It's a much better place to pass.
Briscoe does not have to move out of the way.
Rahal with a peak.
Yeah, and he tried to do that going into 1. That cost him the gap that he needed to be able to come out of 2.
Whoop. A little further back, we saw Andretti get shoved aside and a little jam up.
No more push to pass.
Everybody's through okay, though.
So what's happening now is that Will Powers being able to gap himself between him and Rahal.
Sorry, Briscoe's got 2. Let's watch Kanaan. He's got none.
Play-by-play on the push to pass remaining from the pit box.
Rahal is really quick in the slow bits, but doesn't quite seem to have the speed in the straightaways. Look at the distance he gains under braking.
But you have to time that right, don't you? You need to time it to a point where you are then coming out of the turn.
And if
by the time
Rahal
you get to the exit, you're about 3 or 4 miles an hour faster than the car in front.
If Rahal missteps by half a foot, he has a stone killer in Kanaan behind him, who is still trying to get his championship going this season.
Here's Rahal on Briscoe.
Here he goes. Nice timing. Well done, Graham.
Good job. Go get Will. Go get Will.
And the race is on.
But Will got that gap. Look at the gap now. That took so long to get around Briscoe.
Focus forward. 9 to go.
9 laps.
But we have surmised earlier, we thought, Eddie, you and I talked, that Graham had a faster car than Will Power. So is he going to be able to chip away at that lead right now every lap until he get close enough to hopefully make a pass?
He better be knocking off some big chips, because Power has put quite a good gap between him and the rest of the field.
Now the bottleneck at third position as Kanaan and Justin Wilson race there with Ryan Briscoe. Will Power received a warning for blocking for that restart move that we saw earlier going into turn 1 and 2, Jamie.
And Tim Cinder came on the radio and told Will. Will didn't say a word. He's just looking ahead and very focused. Remember, he has one win this year. It was the first race of the year at St. Pete, hoping to get it done here today.
What a great turnaround for Ray Hall.
Yeah, but that block actually set the stage for Will to be able to get past with Ryan, and then now he gets to gap him. So basically, and here comes Ryan. We knew Ryan wasn't going to make it to the end anyway, so really, yeah, he made a bit of a block, but actually it was a smart thing.
Ryan Briscoe brings the car in. Originally they were going to put black sidewall tires. They've gone for the softer reds. With just a few laps to go, they're going to go faster, although they've got a problem with the left rear. A slow stop, but Ryan Briscoe's away.
Ray Hall's closing the gap. Something happens when you're the guy that's following. When you get closer, it just seems to get easier.
Yeah.
And now Will Power is looking in his mirrors because he has to make sure he does not leave a lane open for Ray Hall, because Ray Hall will take anything you'll give him today.
Yeah, but we also got 8 laps to go. Graham needs to be smart about this, not push the issue in something that can be confrontational, like this situation now. Just sit back, wait, you've got a few more laps, you have nobody on your backside that's going to pressure you. Sit here and be smart about it. He was 0.8 of a second a lap faster than Will Power that last time by. He's got a faster car.
Yeah, but he can't.
Right there.
He cannot just sit and wait for the perfect moment. The first time the Power puts his guard down, he has to take advantage of it, because Power is not somebody that just lets you go by. He's very quick. Ray Hall is very quick under braking, but he seems to struggle in this corner.
7 to go.
This is where Graham needs to be fully on the power.
You have to be 2 inches behind his gearbox if you're going to pass him turning into 3 under braking. And he's too far away right now. But watch how much he gains in this next series of corners.
Seems to me the critical corner for Graham is that turn 2. That left-hander just at pit exit, where you go over the big jump downhill, and where Power is able to hold enough speed to gap him by a car length there. Graham spends the rest of the lap making it up. He's got to get that right to have a shot on Will down to turn 3.
You're dead right. So what he has to do is he has to put pressure on Power and force him to take a different line in the slow sections. And the only way you can do that is being stuck on his gearbox under braking. Now watch him here, how much he gains. And he gets on the Power so early. All it takes is one wiggle from Power, and Ray Hall will be in there.
See, Will is so good at getting everything out of the car, especially in times like this. He's the guy that everybody knows will find more in qualifying and get an extra 2 or 3 tenths out of the car. Can he continue to do this for the next 7 laps is the question.
Both of these drivers tapped the wall yesterday in the afternoon practice. They found the limit. They both know you got to go as hard as you can, but not too far. Here comes that critical second turn. Can Graham stay with Will right here? Right there.
It's just like 3 feet. He needs 3 feet.
3.3 to Kanaan.
Yeah, you know what's happening. Graham's getting the information. 3.3 seconds back to Kanaan. He knows he does not have to worry about that. But for Graham Rahal, the line going through 2, as you talk about, Graham turns in just a little bit too soon, and so he loses it on the exit because he's turning the car too much through the turn. And Will Power just drives it in a little bit deeper, takes him later apex, and shoots himself out of turn 2. It's interesting to see how much Will was able to speed up.
Adaptive, he knows you're coming. You're a little stronger too.
But Will started to speed up as soon as Graham got on his tail. And so now they're both getting the same speeds.
This is a mental battle more than a physical battle right now, because they can feel the distance between the 2 cars. If he gains 1 car length on him, that passes the advantage to Power.
Or was Power sitting back, not using his tires up too much? And Graham Rahal maybe actually took the, as we say, the best part of the tire away from him just to get caught up.
Power's pulling away.
5 to go.
Yeah.
Across that turn 2.
Oh, and he hits the curb. That is not a curb you want to hit.
From under here.
Yeah. So
Getting
right
a little
now,
flustered.
Yes. Graham was about 3 or 4 tenths of a lap slower that last time through.
That curve in turn 2 is not something you want to get used to hitting. Advantage power right now. After this lap, there'll be 4 laps to go.
And you see a pretty good gap behind them. It's three.
No pressure from behind.
There is none. 3.7 seconds back to Tony Kanaan in third place. Tony Kanaan, Justin Wilson, Helio Castroneves, who's led so much of this race, but the strategy got him trapped back in 5th place, now 9 seconds off the race leader.
That last yellow really hurt Castroneves.
There's Tony Kanaan, who his team's strategy got him ahead of all the other guys he was on the same cycle with, but it's going to leave him back in 3rd place.
Kanaan just seems to not have enough speed to keep up with these first 2.
Well, Alan, you look at the way Will Power is so hooked up right now. You'd never guess that as you see Tony Kanaan on the screen. Will Power was so out of it yesterday. In first practice, something broke on his gas pedal, missed a big portion of practice. Then second practice, as you mentioned, got into the wall. They had to change the rear wing. Then this morning in qualifying, they said the car was almost undrivable. The setup was not where he needed it to be. He qualified 16th. That's his worst start here by far. They were completely going to change that setup, go back to Helio Castroneves' setup, and look at him. He's running away with it right now out front as he pulls ahead a little bit more from Graham Rahal.
If he's using Castroneves' setup, he better buy him dinner tonight because it sure is working. He's flawless. He's flawless. He's not sliding anymore. He's hitting all of his marks. He has, after this lap, 3 laps to go.
Well, a little pressure taken off by getting that extra couple of lengths on Graham Rahal.
And he's closed the gap with Hunter-Reay if he can keep this up in the championship point standings.
Will Power's been a factor in every race this season. It's only been mistakes that have kept him from being a factor to the finish of the last couple. Remember, he dominated and won the race at St. Pete to start the season. He had good runs going on at Long Beach and at Barber. He was leading at Barber. When he went off the course, he was running well at the Grand Prix at Indianapolis. When he hit an air hose leaving a pit stop, got a penalty. He had the speeding penalty last week in the 500 in Indianapolis that took him from contending for the win there. He's been strong every week this season, but today he's trying to be strong enough to finish it off.
I would hold the press here for a second. Rahal has closed the gap again. He's closed the gap. Let's not quite write off Graham here for a moment. We have 2 laps to go after this one.
But Will Power knows what's on stake here. It's the hometown race of Roger Penske.
Graham Rahal couldn't care less that it's Penske's home car race right now.
I said Will Power. No, Graham.
Yeah, but the guy who was following him couldn't care less. He's closing the gap. Not enough to have a run at him coming out of 2, but it's getting tighter and tighter.
At this point in time, I think Will just looks in the mirror, makes sure that he's gapping himself. He's heard on the radio how far behind Graham is. We'll see what the speeds are this time coming along. And Will Power picked it back up again by just about a half a tenth. So
2 laps to go. 28 corners?
I hope there's 14.
That's pretty quick math.
Choice, yeah.
I'm telling you,
that's good. Your addition's improved.
What a drive today, though, for Graham Rahal and this team. A result that they so badly needed, Rick.
Yeah, and I will tell you, just a moment ago, Bobby told Graham that he just set his fastest lap of the race, the fastest lap that Graham's been able to do. So obviously they've been able to bring those tires back. But think about the significance of this second place. In the Indy last place finish, 33rd. They have not had a good finish yet this season with all the things they've done in the offseason to reassemble this team and rebuild it. And now to get a second place finish, just a little while ago, Bobby said on the radio, remember, the goal here, a good finish.
You know, when you talk to people, they talk about not getting the results we deserve or not getting the results that show how we're running. And you hear that from people, and you understand it. But the end result is the result. And today they're posting the result to show everybody else that they are back on track and performing the way that they expected to when this season started.
And the team really believes in the driver. Last lap just is not close enough.
And the neat thing for Graham Rahal, because he has had some problems earlier this year, We get to do this again tomorrow, guys.
Power on his last push to pass there. Ray Hall with a good run. Still got one left. He's got one more long stretch. Down along the strand toward turn 7 will be the last really strong passing opportunity for Ray Hall if he can stay close.
Oh, and Power was putting up over the curbs. You can see how hard he's driving it right now. He can feel them. Doesn't even need to look in the mirrors, but Graham need to be just a little bit closer coming through turn 6.
Two great drives from both of them. Different motivation, but two astonishing drives.
And you know how hard we're working in the car right now just to finish these laps. Your heart's racing, your hands are sore, your
This is the closest he's been. This is the closest he's been to him since this last stint started.
He's going to have to find a way to really stuff it inside in this last couple of corners if he's going to have a way to go. There's his last push to pass.
Oh, and Power comes out sideways.
Checkered flag is in the air to the finish line. With his second win of the season comes Will Power for Team Penske.
Good job, boys. Good job, boys. Awesome.
Almost a bit of a victory also for Graham Rahal.
That's a big day for Chevrolet. He's got a car in the tires in turn 5.
That car is Ryan Hunter-Reay, who's in the tires in turn 5 on the last lap. There are also two others who have turned around on the last lap. Mick Aloloshin and Jack Hawksworth are in the tires also.
Yeah, two rookies.
And a champion.
28, Ryan Hunter-Reay. Everybody has desperation on the last lap, trying to get 1, 2, or 3 positions.
That's down at turn 7 for Hunter-Reay. The other two over at turn 5. We'll follow up on those situations as we continue with our post-race coverage. First down to Jamie.
Tim Cindric calling the shots here for Will Power. I just talked to you earlier today, and you guys, you said the car was almost undrivable. How important were the changes you made between qualifying and race today?
Yeah, it certainly gave us a good car. You know, you guys gave us real good pit stops, and Will, when you can put him out front and get some clear laps, he certainly puts them together. And, you know, what he did on the track today, and for Chevrolet and everybody at Verizon here today, you know, we've got Dan Mead here and his wife and everybody from Chevrolet. It's a big, big deal for all of us.
He started in the back, came on the radio and said that was a tough race. How was it to call?
Yeah, I mean, things kind of fell our way. We needed some of those breaks to break the race up a bit, and, you know, we took advantage of it. So, awesome day for all of us.
Big win for Team Penske, the 4th here at Detroit. Alan?
Well, they did need some things to fall their way. They started 16th in this one, but the strategy calls, the cautions, and a great drive by a great driver all worked out today for Will Power in Detroit. A tactical race on pit road, a tremendous drive on the racetrack, and some frantic moments in the final laps of this one. Will Power wins. Ryan Hunter-Reay, one of his rivals for the championship. Here's what happened to him in turn 7 last lap.
Underneath his teammate Marco Andretti, he just gets in it just a little bit too hard, a little bit too hot, loses control and slides into the barrier. Not something that he wanted to finish his day off with.
So Hunter-Reay back in 16th place, while Will Power has driven in to the pit lane, the race winner.
He said how difficult of a day this was, how difficult of a race it was to drive. Well, almost weren't able to stand up there, and you came on the radio and said this was a hard race. How much more difficult did Graham Rahal make it on you?
He made it very difficult, man. He never gave up. I thought I could pull a bit of a gap and get a buffer, and every time I relaxed, he'd straight back on me. So, yeah, just what a race. It's the type of race you love. No fuel save, just run hard, and good strategy from the guys. Just, yeah, great for the Verizon guys. Great for Roger to win here at Belle Isle, and great for Chevy to have their first win here. So, very happy.
It's been a tough couple of races for you. You guys make a mistake here or there. It's been a tough weekend for you guys, and you changed the setup this morning. How key was that for this car?
Yeah, it was, man, this track is just really difficult on cold tires. So it takes a long time to get temperature, and once my car was on, it was really quick, but definitely struggled on cold tires.
Well, we saw how whooped you were there getting out. You have to do it again tomorrow. Are you ready? Will you do anything differently?
I was thinking that on the last stand. I'm like, man, I got to do this tomorrow, and I'm like absolutely puffing, but
that's why we do fitness, and I'll try to recover as best I can and see if we can come back and do it again.
Congratulations. Will Power wins it in Detroit. Let's go over to Rick with the runner-up.
Yeah, Graham Rahal, he's a little sad because he's in second place, but you have to feel good about this finish. Let's take us through that last stint when you were chasing down Will Power.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was going to finally get the monkey off my back today. I knew I had a car that was as quick as him. I knew I had one opportunity, and that was on the restart, and he blocked me, and which I would have done too, so I don't blame him. But that last run, I thought, we put on a charge, we caught him. Started to fade a little bit, and I wasn't really sure what was going on, but then all of a sudden it came to us, and this National Guard car went right to the front. And I got to tell you, my guys has done a phenomenal job. And I said after Indy that this team was made up of champions, and that it was going to come in time, and we're going to win one. We're going to do it. I can promise you that. But second, I mean, this is like my 12th second place finish in my life, but one of these days we're going to get it. We're going to get that monkey off our back, and it's coming soon. But very proud of the National Guard team.
All right, let's talk about your dad talking you through this. I mean, that's an interesting dynamic, having your father in your ear calmly, and at one point he was a little chastising.
Oh, he was pretty heated today. Actually, I'm going to have a word with him after this, because I was going to say to him, like, I don't know why you're getting so worked up or fired up, but fine, But at the end of the day, I'm pretty calm, cool, and collected in the car. I don't really get too worked up. I sound like it on the radio, but to be honest, I never really do. And I was focused on the task at hand, and I knew I was one of the few guys that could really drive by a lot of people today. And so when I saw myself in 13th place after our bad run on the Reds, I thought, this isn't over. I mean, I can still pass all these guys, and sure enough, we went right to the front.
There you go, Graham Rahal finishing second. As he was getting back into the pits, he asked his dad, when am I finally going to win one? And Bobby said, how about tomorrow? Doc?
Well, Tony Kanaan has a great run, finishing third, first top 5 of the year. And you'd think he'd climb out of the car, he'd be smiling, but Tony not happy with the car, even though you had the great finish.
No, I mean, the team did a great job. I got to thank the Energizer Target guys and on the great stops, but you can't be happy finishing third. We want to win, so we're working towards that direction. It was a great race for us. We got great restarts, great pit stops. The strategy played out in our favor big time, so we have tonight to work on it, and tomorrow I want to put that thing in P1, that's for sure. The Energizer car has a pretty good history of winning with Dixon and Dario, so I got to keep it up.
You got out of the car and you ran over to Chip Ganassi, you whispered something in his ear. It's something obviously you want different for tomorrow. You want to share that with us?
I said, Chip, I want to win. I mean, I'm happy that I'm third, but I want to win for you so bad. That's all I said.
Tony Kanaan, that's as competitive as a driver can get. Third, not good enough for him. He wants to win for Chip Ganassi tomorrow.
Well, all 3 of the drivers you just heard from there all mentioned it, and they're our best promotion. But we'll mention it again, because it's our job. The Duel in Detroit continues tomorrow. Another one just like today, 3:30 Eastern, same time, same place here on ABC. And the next round of the championship is tomorrow. This one was an interesting one. Will Power with a big game today.